Hello, and welcome back to another English podcast with Paul. How have you been? Have you been well? Okay. Well, I haven't heard a lot from you. You need to put some stuff down in the comments. Have a conversation. Right. So, good to see you. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all feeling good and ready to listen to another advanced English listening with me. Now, I prefer it to be a bit more engaging with the pair of us. So, if you can participate, it would really help. Right. So today, if it's all right with you, I was thinking about talking about British politics and Parliament. So I've been doing lots of research and I've got some notes in front of me. So forgive me if it looks like I'm reading. I probably am. But this is unscripted, unedited, advanced English. So yes, it's unscripted, but I'm trying to hold all this information in my head that for you guys, because the British, and this is what we're going to talk about today, British politics, or rather the houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So I've had to do a lot of I've done some research and I've got confused, and I did a bit more research and I got even more confused. And then I went off onto a tangent this way and that way. Anyway, hopefully I've scraped together enough information and hopefully I regurgitate it back to you in a way that you can understand. Because to be honest, I'm a little bit confused myself. All right. Or maybe I was just ignorant to the whole thing of politics. Anyway, right, okay, so if you know that I'm wrong, please mention it in the comments and help me with my education about the British politics. All right, so let's just dive in. All right, Parliament. The UK Prime Minister leads the government, and right now it's Rishi Sunak. Love him or hate him is who we've got right now. I'll get on to in a minute my thoughts on the politics and the government and the way it works. But so we got Rishi Sunak with the support of his cabinet and ministers. All right, so we got members of Parliament. They're MPs. We call them MPs. He's an MP, a member of Parliament. Now I've only just I'll get on to that in a minute, but I've just been trying to work out and scratch my head how exactly it all works. Ugh, I'm not trying to put you off, or maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know, but it got me a little bit confused. All right, MPs. The UK Parliament are two chambers. No, I don't know why they call it two chambers. It's not Harry Potter, is it? Or houses. So there's the Houses of Commons and there's the House of Lords. And they're all in the Palace of Westminster. Oh, great. Okay, so I think that's right. Parliament is the biggest, the most powerful. It has the sovereignty of the state. It's the supreme sovereignty. So it has the highest authority in the UK. Let's not get on to talking about the monarchy and how much power the king actually has. He has a huge amount of power in that he could dissolve the whole of government just like that and do whatever he wants and start again. But like his mother before him, Queen Elizabeth, the biggest, how do I put this, card up your sleeve, or the biggest secret, is to not use that power. Just keep it in reserve in case one day you need to. But basically, the king could overthrow the government at any point or dissolve it or do what he wants. So the king actually has the most sovereign power. He just chooses not to use it because he's clever that way. Well, or the monarchy are that clever that way. They choose not to use it. All right, so we've got this democracy. Right, let's get on to Westminster. In a big election, I think it happens like every 4 years. I don't vote, so don't get me started. You vote for a person that's representing your area. So if you like the person that's for Lib Dems or Liberal Democrats, or you like the party of Labour, or you like the party of Conservative, and you're basically voting on their policies, what they would do if they get into government. All right? So you're voting on the policies of that party. Now, sometimes a person might change parties, but that's another whole ball game, whole new kettle of fish. All right, so you elect your local area, they call it a constituent, an area, a zone. There's lots of other words for that kind of thing. So you elect either Lib Dem, which is yellow, Labour, which is, I want to say blue. No, sorry. Labour is red and blue is Conservatives. Often they'll wear a colour so you can see which party they are straight away. And sometimes they come round knocking on doors, or, they put up some adverts and billboards and they say, oh, vote for us. We're really, really going to be pushing and wanting to talk about an issue that affects you or your children or your family. And then quite often, once they get in, they forget about all that, or they say, oh, we didn't get enough support, we couldn't take it forward, blah, blah, blah. Usual BS. Right. So, yeah, every 4 years or 3 years, somebody from one of those parties, and after those 4 or 5 years, when there's another general election, every seat is up for grabs. All right. We'll come on to the other bit in a minute. All right. So you got the House of Commons. The winning party members from your area will have a seat on a green seat. I don't know what the colour's got to do with it, but on a green seat. There's quite a lot of them in the Houses of Commons. Right. 650 seats for the ministers. What else have I got written down here? Yeah, I said that. All seats are up for grabs after an election, or at an election. Right. Then the other part. So there's kind of two main parts, right, as I kind of implied earlier. House of Commons and the House of Lords. All right. The House of Lords, non-elected members. Now, there's 92 members. Now, this is where it gets confusing. Plus 26 bishops, Church of England bishops, and then others that are appointed by the king. So I think they said, what did they say on average? Oh, they think 784, give or take, because some people retire, some people die, etc. So 784 for the House of Lords. Right, so we've got House of Commons, House of Lords. All right. Now, this is where it got a bit confusing. I'm moving over to my next bit of notes now. So there's these three parties, right? Now, these parties and these areas are called constituents. And we are the constituents. Maybe I'm confusing myself already. Right. So the three parties all have constituents, or the people that they support from that area. And depending on who wins the vote, whether it's Conservative, Lib Dem or Labour, whichever of those get in makes up the cabinet. All right, so like I said, we had the Commons and the Lords, and then inside the Commons we have a cabinet of MPs. All right, so that all these elected MPs are what I said earlier, that you'll be selected. So let's just say, for example, London, they win Conservatives. All right, and let's just say, for example, there's 320 seats. All right, so throughout the country, Conservative win, and they have, say, 320 seats. So maybe they have like London, they have this area, they have that area, they have that area. Because there's a lot of, you can't say towns or parishes, but slightly different geo-fencing, slightly different geography as these constituent areas. And then the constituents are the people that make up that constituency. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. Right. So if, for example, Conservative get in, which are blue, and they have 320 seats, and then red, which is Labour, maybe they have 250 seats, so they win a few other areas. And then yellow, Lib Dems, only win a very small minority of, say, 80 seats, which make up 650. So you got the three different lots of seats, and the biggest majority of seats pertaining to whichever party get in as the government, or as the cabinet, the deciding government. They get to make all the decisions, and the cabinet is normally about 22 seats. There's 22 bigger MPs or people, the MPs that are given specific roles. This cabinet is a specific duty and roles and jobs. So you got a member of parliament, and then if your party gets elected, then you could be considered to go in that cabinet to help the government, the sort of the working government that's making all the decisions. Right, so House of Lords, House of Commons, MPs, members of parliament. Right, okay. What's this next bit then? All right, so the largest seats is the party the party that wins is the party that gets the most seats for all these different constituencies. All right. What else I got? Attending sessions. So what the MPs do during the day generally is one of the things they do. They attend sessions to vote on laws and policies and raise concerns and other things and debate stuff. All right, so that's kind of what happens. Right, they all get together and they say, we should pass this, we should pass that, we need to read about this, what are we going to decide, things like that. So they all get together in the cabinet and make all these decisions, all right? And then there's another thing called question time, which you may have heard of. And that's when members of parliament ask questions of the government ministers. That's those ones that are governing and doing making all decisions. So all the other ministers can ask these ministers questions. More often than not, it's the prime minister, but they're obliged to answer. So they have to answer whatever the questions are by the other ministers. Which makes it quite confusing and quite interesting and quite lively. If, for example, your party is not in at the time, then you could be giving them a lot of grief and a lot of hassle about every topic under the sun. But I guess you're only getting allotted time. Well, it's for 1 hour anyway. All right. So then there's another thing called NMGDs. Non-ministerial government departments. I had no clue what this was until I investigated. Non-ministerial government departments. So they're in charge of other parts of government that don't need to be thrashed about or worked on in the government, because the government is basically all about making decisions and making choices and juggling things and budgets and stuff like that. But stuff that sort of gets left alone and gets run with these other ministers are things like like the prison service or charities or social care or about the rivers and the waterways, other things that have a accountability to the government. They have accountability to the government. They are these other non-ministerial government departments. I hope that's clear. Yes, clear as mud. So clear as mud. That's something we might say as sarcasm, meaning it's not clear at all. All right, so NMGDs, question time. So because I was asking Google, what do they do? They get paid a pretty penny, so what do they do? So we've got all these all these MPs trying to jostle their own agendas and help running the company, and jostling and sort of arguing with the elected cabinet that are also trying to facilitate these decisions. And then they put that into motion. I suspect mostly through these NMGDs, and I guess policies and stuff gets done, and then it gets handed down to local governments. So like City of London or Cornwall, government of Cornwall, Devon and Cornwall, I think it is. Well, Devon and Cornwall Police, anyway. And it gets issued out and dealt with. And the same with the police. And other big organisations will get given their sort of orders for the year, and that'll all get distributed. All right, okay. Right, so House of Lords, House of Commons, MPs. So that brings me back to the House of Lords. And I thought, well, what exactly is the House of Lords? No scratch on my head. So I remember hearing about Lord Alan Sugar. I thought, oh, yeah, he's on that You're Fired. You also have that in the US. I think Trump did that. We call it over here You're Fired. And I think they call it something different over there. Anyway, I digress. So the Lords, a lot of them have already been given this title of peerage. And I thought, what the heck is peerage? But in 1992, here we go, as a fact for you, 1992, hereditary membership was abolished, except for the 90 seats that were already held. Okay, so the Lords would have been barons back in the day, but knights. And there's often either, like I said, 90 of them which were hereditary. Now, I don't know if you already know, but hereditary means passed on from a previous member of the family. So 90 of them were hereditary. Loads of them, how many? Just say. I think a big majority is from what the king has appointed. And then there are some non-members of Parliament knights. So Lord Alan Sugar and other famous people that have done a lot for the country have been given knighthoods. KBE. Now, get ready for this, right? You get ready for this. Okay. It's an award, and it's called, all right, Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. And then there's the GBE, which is a Dame, Grand Cross Dame of the Most Excellent British Empire, Order of the Most... Where that comes from, I don't know. Obviously, years and years and years, decades ago. All right. So that's a knighthood. So if you've got a knighthood, you could be called up to be a member of Parliament, or invited, rather. Invited. Do you want to come up and be a member of Parliament? You could be a knight. Sit at the back there and, disagree with somebody. All right, so knights. And there's 784 of them, give or take. Nobody knows exactly. So these lords would have been barons and people that own land and things like that, or people that the king deemed worthy of having a knighthood. So then we've got these kind of people that have done a lot for the country, whether it be in business or sport or charity or whatever else. They've got knighthoods. There's also temporary knighthoods, or temporal knighthoods. And then there's those knighthoods with the KBE, GBE, Dame. And they're a proper knight, so they get called Sir or Lord Sugar. I think there's a lower level. There's like 3 different levels of knighthood. Now we've got a CBE, Commander of the Most Excellent of the British Order, an OBE, Officer of said British Order, and then an MBE, which is a member of the Most Excellent British Empire. So CBE, OBE, MBE. But above that, then you got the real knighthoods. So it's not exactly clear. If you're a knight, then I think you also have... if you're a knight, you can automatically be called Sir. Now, if you've got these lesser awards, like the CBE, OBE, and MBE, you're not a Sir. You're just an awarded person. But if you've got a knighthood, then you are called Sir or Madam. And then there's Lord and Dame. Sorry, Knight and Dame. And then there's also Lord, which I don't know how you go from a knight to a lord. Often, Lord knighthoods, I think it's part of the knighthood thing. The Lord knighthood is often given to high-ranking officials in the armed forces and retiring politicians and current, I think it said judges. Senior judges of court are often giving that title. No? Oh, dear. Yes, sorry. Lord. All right, so if that's not confusing enough, all right, knights, which is a Sir, and then above the knight you have a Lord. So you had Sir Alan Sugar, and now it's Lord Alan Sugar. And a Lord can be invited into the House of Lords and be a member of Parliament. So the Lords are like the highest order of knights. And then you got the knights, and then you got the CBE, OBE, and MBE. All right, so CBE, OBE, MBE is an award. A knighthood or a damehood is also an award where you get called Sir. And then above that knighthood, then there's the Lord. You get called a Lord. And you could be invited into the House of Lords. Oh, goodness me! Wow, that was hard to explain and understand. Right, there is one other part to this as well. Where am I going with this? MBE, GBE, CBE. Oh. The last bit. Right Honourable. Now, I saw that. Right Honourable. So a Right Honourable, so if you're looking at all the ministers in the government, you'll see the title Right Honourable. And I wasn't sure what that meant. And it is generally just a courtesy, politeness title given to somebody in that party. So generally the people in power, or the government that's in power, says my right honourable colleague, meaning that person is in the same party. All right, whether it's Lib Dem, Labour or Conservative. The right honourable. It's basically just a polite way of saying somebody's name, a politeness thing. Okay, so that's the quick overview guide and what I understand about the cabinet and British politics. Now, obviously, when a new law comes in or when something happens in the papers and stuff has to happen where maybe they'll put it out to, what they'll do an inquiry that'll go out. Maybe a lord will take charge of that, and there'll be an inquiry into maybe a miscarriage of justice, maybe an inquiry into whether or not electric scooters should be allowed on the roads, and they'll do all sorts of surveys and research and things like that. And then they'll present a paper. There's different colours of paper. I think there's like a green paper, then a white paper, and it's depending on how far through the House of Lords and Commons it goes, whether it gets amended and changed and goes back again before it eventually becomes law. And the police get a copy of it, and it goes out to, well, it goes on to websites, I suppose, and local councils get to find out about it. So there we go. We got the main government with the House of Commons, the House of Lords, full of MPs. And then we got local government, normally within a county, like the county of Devon, county of Somerset, the county of Dorset. All right. So then you've got local government. And then that local government will take on board what the large government has said and use the money that they've received and some of their instructions. And they will carry out their duties in accordance with the cabinet's wishes, the government's wishes. All right. So then that's local government. Say Somerset, for example, because that's where I live. Somerset Council. They will look after the entire county. Then inside Somerset, we have smaller councils. I guess similar sort of thing in lots of other countries where you have a local council to that town or that district. So then we'd have smaller ones, again, with their own sort of financial pot, their own finances, and they will distribute locally. So that's how it's disseminated. The information, the money, and the policies and the laws. But when you get down into the more granular councils, like the local council, there can be discrepancies within, not discrepancies, but different choices made in regards to, say, local services. If it's not governed by the government, the big government, then they can make their own decisions. So, for example, and this is what I mean, your children might go to a local school, and maybe your child needs extra support in regards to, I don't know, reading, or maybe they have some disabilities. That school might not have the funding to supply as much of the support as you might need. But if you went to another local council, say you went to, I don't know, Dorset, that's another county. If you went to Dorset County Council, maybe their policies and their ideas is to put more funding into that department. So depending on where you live, it can become a little bit of a postcode lottery. That's a term we use quite often to highlight the discrepancies and the disparity between one council and another council. So whether it's schools, whether it's art, or whether it's libraries, often different councils in different areas will have different budgets and different ideas of how to spend and use that money, unless it's dictated by the government. So it does get a little bit confusing and a little bit of a jackpot. No, jackpot is what comes out at the end. A little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit of a lottery. That's it. See, the word jackpot connects with lottery. There we go. So yeah, it's a little bit of a lottery as to where you choose to live and how that local government, that local council decide to use that money, where to put it and what to do with it. Interesting stuff. But also sometimes it's boring because sometimes it's very, very mundane, or stuff that doesn't interest you or is not important to you. Hence, I guess, where you get the term NIMBY, NIMBY, not in my backyard. So, for example, if a local council wants to have a mental health institute, or maybe sort of drug rehabilitation, something that comes to your area that you might think is going to be bad and bring down the area. Maybe it might make crime higher. So you might have these ideas that not in my backyard. I don't want it. Keep it. Go. It can go away. Take it up to London. Take it up north. We don't want it down here. Not in my backyard. NIMBY. Maybe, like I say, maybe it's a prison or something like that. And you don't want it because you might think that it's going to bring down the house prices and raise the crime rate, in which case that'll have an effect on, one, your house price if you want to sell it, and two, the insurance, maybe your car insurance or your house insurance, because the crime statistics will change. Gets complicated, doesn't it? It gets complicated. Oh dear. Right. I really hope that I've passed on this information as clearly as I can, because it is discombobulating having so much information and so many government agencies and government restrictions and government policies all overlapping and interacting with all these other different councils or local government, we call it. And then you think, oh my goodness, such a headache if you had to be in charge of some of this or you want to get stuff done. Because it's also the same for building regulations. If you want to build a house on a bit of land, the building regulations might be governed by your local council. Or there might be something that's overarching from the head of government up in London, from the Commons. Maybe they've said, well, we're not building into green sites this year, even though there's a housing crisis. Isn't there always? There's always a crisis. There's always a crisis of something. So yeah, brown belts, grey belts, green belts. Oh, confusing. Anyway. It's a rabbit hole. You get lost down the rabbit hole. That's what they say. Like Alice in Wonderland, going down the rabbit hole. How far down do you go before you get too lost and confused? You go out your mind. Right, okay, so I'm wrapping it up there. If you've got similar things in your government and similar headaches, please put them down below in the comments. Let's have a conversation. It's quite interesting. All right, thank you very much. Take care for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.